Hi folks, Chris Craine here to talk to you about multiple intelligence theory by Howard Gardner. As a brief introduction, multiple intelligence theory expands our definition of intelligence. It moved it from just an idea that maybe we were just math and verbally oriented to that the people have different types of intelligence and that they excel in learning in these specific intelligences that is most prominent with them. There are 7 original domains of learning or intelligence, which we'll discuss here shortly. And there's been other intelligence mentioned since the original, which was back, I believe, in the late 70s. Definition of learning. The multiple intelligence theory is a set of abilities, talents, or mental skills, meaning that in each one of those intelligences that we just spoke about in the intro slide, they're considered as that abilities, talents, or mental skills. You'll see as we talk about the musical or as the bodily movement. Then at times they are skill related and are to your abilities and your talents. That's usually where you are going to excel at certain things. Some people are musically talented, etc. All humans have some of each intelligence to some extent. This is true. Everybody could, if they work hard enough at it, possibly learn to play some type of instrument, even if it's just keeping rhythm with hand claps or foot stomps, etc. On percussion. So there are basic assumptions that each person's intelligence are a unique combination, that we're much like a fingerprint or a snowflake. No two people are going to learn the same. Some people are going to be stronger in one areas and weaker in others. That's just the way it is. The domains of learning and intelligence range from a more traditional type of intelligence to a more forward-thinking intelligence, and that's where those are broken down into areas that we might not have considered traditional, like mathematics or verbal. The nature of complex learning is there are original 7 intelligences. Logic or mathematical intelligence, the ability to manipulate numbers and systems. Linguistic intelligence, again, something more traditional, working in our verbal areas. We've learned by hearing verbal, like lectures, etc., or by reading text. Musical intelligence, some people learn better, for example, not just necessarily playing instruments, but also that by developing a rhythm, they would pick it up better. So a good example of that would be when you, like in Renaissance Man with Danny DeVito, when they were rapping Shakespeare. And you've seen that also probably used in other videos where other teachers use that in the classroom to develop a rhythm and it gets the kids into it. Spatial intelligence, the ability to see and manipulate objects in space and understand how things fit together. One of my personal strengths, pack a car very well, especially when there's a lot of luggage to go in it. Bodily and kinesthetic intelligence, possibly you would consider this maybe with athletes a lot of times, maybe muscle memory and things like that, or that they learn easily when they're going through and beginning cues in the paces of, say, a skill drill or something like that, but also it's manipulative movements. So anything with manipulative, that where kids learn better with using manipulative, sometimes with math and using the blocks to break down fractions and other problems. Interpersonal intelligence, which is the ability to read and collaborate with other people and being able to pick up on what their feelings are and understanding where they're coming from. Essentially, intrapersonal intelligence is the ability to look inside and a reflection of yourself, and that you learn from kind of your own experiences and what you've learned about yourself. And naturalist intelligence, with people that enjoy and sometimes are more in tune with nature. The issues, the pros with Gardner and multiple intelligences, and teaching to multiple intelligences. All students will be seen as successful because we're looking for those incremental measurements, and that if we can very much differentiate our instruction down to really hit all these different multiple intelligences, we can really reach a lot of different students. All different talents of students will be appreciated. Some of the kids, if you say we're doing Shakespeare in like a 9th grade English classroom, a 10th grade English classroom, some of the kids may pick up the lines and may understand how the verbal part of it better if they're able to put it into that metered feel, and put it out like that. A variety of instructional practices are used. Obviously, when we're differential instruction trying to reach and hit each one of these areas, we're going to have to use a lot of different instructional practices. Lessons are planned with more thought, again, because what you're going to have to do is sometimes maybe it's going to carry on between 2 and 3 days in order to hit kind of all the areas you want to hit as you identify your students and where your kind of sweet spots are. And meets individual needs better because now we're kind of tailoring it to different intelligences. And at some point, if we can hit 4 or 5 major ones through a lesson in some way, we probably are going to at least hit one on something in the classroom that each kid is going to be able to pick up and learn from. The cons. More time is needed for lessons. Again, as I said, if you're differentiating, that means you're doing more activities and trying to squeeze more in. So things take a little bit more time to get through a full lesson. Assessing students' learning could be cumbersome. At times it's hard because you don't have a baseline to compare kid to kid, because on a standardized test where everybody's kind of taking the same thing, you may have to grade some kids better in some areas and may only want to use that. Uniting a staff would be difficult. Obviously, if you're looking for a whole, like a whole school initiative to kind of move in this direction, it could be tricky getting all staff to buy in, and more supplies would be needed. Yes, again, funding is always an issue, and as we all know, supplies are scarce. Principles of instruction. While each student has some of each intelligence, they will not excel at each. Right. So even though that each one has some of that, they may not excel in an area. It doesn't mean that it can't be developed. Again, like I was saying earlier, that we would be able to develop it. You could learn to play the guitar even though you're not necessarily very musical. You may not ever be a rock star or Eric Clapton, but you would be able to probably, almost everybody would be able to pick up and with practice the basic handling of a guitar and being able to do that. Also, even on the most simple levels, you may be able to clap in time and rhythm when we speak of things, like I said, musically. And it is important to make sure that each intelligence is being taught. Yes, as much as possible, we want to try to hit on each area in that intelligence spectrum and try to make sure that we're trying to get at least one lesson in for each one. And again, that goes back to one of the cons where it can be kind of cumbersome and time consuming. Components of instruction. In the multiple intelligence theory, there are 4 key points that are important to remember when using this theory in practice. First, each person possesses all 7 intelligences. Again, we just talked about that. So most people can develop each intelligence to an adequate level of competency. That's what I said on the last slide about how even if we are don't feel we are musically inclined with practice and an effort, we can possibly develop our musical thing to be able to play simple songs on a piano, or get down the steps to a dance, which then can be translated over using vocabulary and say of an ELA lesson in order to kind of dictate that with a rhythm. Intelligence usually work together in complex ways. Yes, they are connected in certain things. Rhythm and being able to see things spatially, or obviously music and our bodily and kinesthetic could very much work together. Yes, and there are many ways to be intelligent within each category. Yes, even within those categories, there are different ways. For example, logic and mathematics, you may be a little bit more logically inclined than on the numbers side of things. And that's an example of how that kind of hangs out. Major contributions to the theory. Each individual can be intelligent in their own way. Each human can have a special talent or intelligence that makes them unique and special. Again, you can excel in one area very, very well. Again, to go back to for example, to go back to, say, a professional musician that reaches those levels with a large symphony. It's, in that area right there, there's probably somebody that's also going to be very mathematically inclined, as they're closely related. This theory opens people's eyes to the shortcomings of the IQ test and many other similar assessments. So yes, as they started doing this, they kind of said, well, the general IQ test maybe is not such a great measure, or doesn't determine exactly where your intelligence is at if it's not measuring those things. So we need to make sure that we're still taking those things into account. So reference this slide. And I thank you for taking time to watch this video. Have a good day.